Hey everyone, Unblocked is a bi-monthly event series where guests are asked questions in an AMA-style format, focusing on questions relevant to early-stage startups and blockchain technology. Unblocked is sponsored by DLab, a startup accelerator and venture studio that sits within the SOSV family. You can find out more at www.dlab.vc. We hope you enjoy the conversation. Welcome everyone to today's episode of Unblocked, where my guest is Trevor Koverko. He's the founder and CEO of Polymath, a security token platform which makes it easy to create, issue, and manage digital securities on the blockchain. Trevor, welcome.
Thanks, Paul. Excited to dive in. This is a full circle for me, so super excited.
Yeah. So, what is a security token?
Getting right to the meat of it. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, hey Frank, you. What's up, buddy? It's been a minute, but So security tokens are. Well, there's a few ways to describe them, and there's not like a full consensus in the community. But I describe it as just a digital representation of financial security. So tokenizing a financial security, whether that's like a stock, a bond, a piece of real estate asset, something that used to be on a piece of paper, now it's kind of transforming and evolving in a good way into the digitally native world. So there's lots of ways to describe it, and ways you can kind of like raise money and things you can do with the asset itself. But in its simplest term, it's really simple. It's just, upgrading legacy things like share certificates on pieces of paper and bringing it to the new world.
So why is that important? Because people trade equities, people trade bonds. Why is this an important problem or thing that needs to be solved?
And there's so many ways to go with this, because in our industry, it's just this massive, huge, multi-trillion dollar industry. Obviously, right? It's the financial capital markets, and that's kind of meaningless now to just throw out huge numbers and say, we could transform this industry. It's kind of too fluffy. So what we like to talk about now is kind of like hard numbers and things around efficiencies and cost savings that actually are realized at the bottom line of businesses, because that's really what's going to cause people to take action. So for example, there's a project called Provenance, and there's a kind of a subsidiary called Figure, and they are founded by a really good founder, and they're taking home equity lines of credit and migrating them to the blockchain. And it turns out you can actually save, I think, 130 basis points in some of their research in cost savings. So that's one huge reason to do this, is that this existing system of, quote unquote Wall Street is extremely complicated. There's a lot of middlemen, there's a lot of rent seekers, there's a lot of people clipping fees kind of along the way. And what blockchain has the potential to do is really streamline that whole process, and not only make it more efficient in cost savings, but more importantly, in my view, is kind of create new exciting products that weren't possible before. And we're still super early in that wave, but we're already seeing some kind of interesting use cases where you can kind of automate dividends and shareholder rights, proxy votings, and things like this, and you can actually do things that you couldn't do before, including brand new products as well, and brand new kind of crypto, decentralized exchanges and index funds, and all these really cool things that are really programmatic at its core, because that's what blockchain, and particularly Ethereum, has enabled you to do, is take a blockchain and put a virtual machine inside of it that has like a compute layer and a scripting language and a domain-specific language and all these interesting technical things that allow you to take the power of blockchain and do a lot of interesting things with it, like what I just said.
It's interesting that you lead with, because typically when I hear about why security tokens, it's it's instant liquidity, and it's interesting that you kind of lead with the cost savings. It's not something I hear quite often. Do you think? And I'm just curious as to why you lead with the cost savings versus like the traditional liquidity. At least that's my experience. I don't know if that's yours.
To me, it's more like, we've been going at this for a while now. We relatively, not really, like compared to how long these cycles take and the magnitude of what we're doing. But, it's been a few years, and we want to, really focus on things we can do today that are quantifiably helping businesses. And unfortunately, liquidity is not one of those things quite yet. Although I will say things are really changing rapidly, and I like to point out, according to some data feeds, I like using stomarket.com. It's kind of like the coin market cap for security tokens. These things have been flying off the sheets this year, and since January, approximately every month, the market cap of all security tokens has been doubling. And if that's not an exponential growth curve, I don't know what is. And even better than that, volumes have been growing even faster, in some cases tripling every month. So we're starting to see kind of that escape velocity of our industry really coming to market. And the best part is it's still relatively under the radar right now. Everyone's focused on like pure DeFi right now, and I think security tokens have a lot of overlap with DeFi, if not in the exact same category. But it's really the year 2020. A lot of the predictions we've been making, have been slow to come, but I think it's been worth the wait. And keep an eye on the growth of the industry, because it's growing. And back to your original question on liquidity, look at the volumes. Like, they're not at finance levels, but security tokens now on regulated exchanges, usually with an ATS license, are really starting to catch their footing. And you see projects like T0 um, um, have crazy activity. The speculators are alive and well in security tokens as well. And I know that's not what we're here for, to help enable speculators, but I think it's also healthy because you have this kind of natural adoption cycle of people rushing in and speculators, and it causes attracts kind of new capital and new interest. So I think that's all healthy and part of the natural cycle. And yeah, just keep an eye on the growth as liquidity finally does start to manifest. That is, as you said, really the holy grail of security tokens. I wouldn't argue that.
Hmm. And so you have somewhat of an unconventional background. You were drafted by the Rangers, professional hockey player at one point, formerly part of an SOSV backed startup called I forgot, eProf, I believe.
eProf, yeah.
Yeah, and you were in our second cohort in China in Dailin. Can you give us a little bit of background of how you found your way into Bitcoin, and then for a little bit later into the Ethereum ecosystems?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2012, and that was my big conviction. I bought one whole Bitcoin for $20. That's how much my conviction was. Barely lunch money, but that kind of opened me up. I was actually kind of earlier than that, kind of poking around, and I saw some interesting projects come up um, prior to Ethereum. So this is like the early Bitcoin-backed tokens like Mastercoin, MadeSafeCoin, Factum, a good friend of ours and board member David Johnson, and and that was kind of like me kind of poking around, getting my toes wet in the industry. But I just loved it. I love the community. I was at some of the first crypto meetups globally that were really starting to catalyze a lot of the excitement that everybody in a decentralized way, like literally from all around the world, were kind of learning about the white paper and figuring out, holy crap, you can do other things with this technology, because it's open source, and that's the core of the movement, which I was also super happy to be involved with. But that kind of evolved into um, being lucky. Ethereum was founded right here in the backyard of Toronto, in my backyard, and I just was kind of in the right place at the right time, and one of the first people in the world to read the white paper back in the day. I forget. I think Anthony Diorio sent it to me, but I was like, this is super cool. Like, I didn't fully appreciate the differences and why Ethereum needed to exist back then. And looking back, it's super obvious. But that was kind of the next big wave up, and then crypto kind of went mainstream there in 2017, 2018, and that's about the time Polymath kind of emerged on the scene.
And so, what was like the early days of Ethereum like? Like, and what was the moment where you were like, I'm going to focus on security tokens?
Yeah, so Ethereum was a really, I think there's like books and movies and stuff coming out, and it definitely deserves that, because it was a lot of fun, a lot of drama, a lot of high stress and intensity. There's 8 co-founders of Ethereum officially, I think, and I was lucky to know pretty much all of them pretty well. And there's guys like Joe Lubin, and guys like Charles Hoskinson, and guys like Anthony Diorio, and all these guys went on to do really interesting things even after Ethereum, which is super cool. This was kind of like the PayPal mafia of crypto that went on and started circulating a lot of the capital back into the ecosystem, and that's where one of the reasons we're at where we are today. So yeah, that could be a whole separate podcast. I wasn't um, you know in the Ethereum Foundation or anything, but I was just kind of lucky to be around when it really kind of and to me, like, the really healthy components of Ethereum in the early days was just the organic community behind it. It wasn't like hypey. It wasn't a lot of like marketing and hypey, but it was like meetups. Like, we would go just random meetups at the University of Toronto about Ethereum, and it would just be volunteers, talking about it, dissecting it, learning about it, and that was really interesting to me. And I actually put that one Bitcoin I bought on eBay, of all places. That's back then, it was pretty much the only place you could buy Bitcoin. And
Wow.
in 2011, 2012, and then I put that one Bitcoin into the Ethereum crowd sale, and that was my big conviction in Ethereum: $20 worth of Bitcoin into the original Ethereum token sale. So that was a lot of fun to kind of play with that and learn it. I think I thought I lost it. It was like a JSON file on my
Wow.
computer, and at one point that $20 Bitcoin became worth like a couple mil because you got 1,000 ETH for the sale. So I was just like,
Yeah.
man, what a crazy ride that was. Not that
Yeah.
I was smart enough to. I still have those ETH to this day because I'm kind of a long-term holder and
Yeah.
believer. But and the stuff they have coming out now is super 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 cool because ETH 2 is barreling ahead to us, and there's so many questions and so many cool innovations that are happening that I'm super excited and bullish, and I'm a proud member of the Ethereum community.
That's great. And so what was the moment where you're like, all right, I'm going to focus on security tokens? Because I know
And then
Polymath was created in 2015, right?
no, we were 2017 Q4 is kind of when
2017.
we came together. Started very organically as well, and we actually launched on Ethereum in our initial iteration, so that um, obviously we had good relationships there, and it made a lot of sense because Ethereum was a live sandbox that we could experiment in and get traction in. But the origins of Polymath is actually a little bit prior to that. I had another business in private equity. So a friend of mine from Goldman Sachs, Devin Sunny, and I were running a buyout fund for early stage. Well, I shouldn't say early stage. I should say micro cap online businesses. So like kind of two to $4 million price tag. So we both sold a company about at the same time, and then we teamed up and we said, hey, let's go to the other side of the table and fake it like we're investors, even though like he actually was an investor. But so that was the actual origin story of Polymath, because what happened was, as we were running this fund and had some nice cash flows from the business, we woke up one morning and crypto, which we were also sort of super interested in, was really emerging. And we said, hey, what if we could combine our two passions and tokenize our fund? And we could take the LP like shares of the fund and tokenize them. And it's going to be fun. And we could like, uh, you know, do all these cool things because we're a tokenized fund, even though at the time there wasn't a lot of things that you could do. But that was the idea. And we actually failed initially because it turns out what we were trying to do was not a typical coin. It was a security coin. And I think we were one of the first people to actually like propose like, what is a security token? Like, should we call it that? I think we were debating between calling it the securities token versus a security token, because like security sounds like it's kind of like cybersecurity kind of, and not like securitization of financial assets and whatnot. So that was the origin stories, and we said, hey, what if we could tokenize it? It turns out it was really hard to do. So we said, it's not only is it hard, it's like impossible, because if you tokenize a financial asset on Ethereum, there's some issues with the securities laws, because securities laws don't like the pillars of Ethereum, such as immutability, and what happens if grandma loses her private keys, so we said, hey, what if we're solving the wrong problem here, and instead of launching this like little fund and tokenizing it, what if we could actually make it not just possible but easy and fun to launch a compliant token that represents a real asset, like a real tangible asset of some kind. So that was kind of the origin story of how Polymath came to be, and we officially launched in kind of 2017, 2018, and we've been just going full speed since then.
And you guys were like the authors basically of ERC 1400, which is basically the security token standard.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've tried to contribute to the Ethereum community. We actually hosted a roundtable in the Caribbean, and we brought in some of our most kind of trusted and well-known kind of securities lawyers and developers, and we said, hey, what if we could kind of agree on, and other people in the ecosystem as well, and we said, what if we could agree on a standard that could kind of help streamline our emerging industry. And what I mean by that is look at utility tokens, so like Ethereum and whatnot. They didn't have a standard either that everyone could agree to, and then it was proposed a few years ago by a German developer named Fabian Vogelsteller. He said, hey, wait a minute, what if we could agree on some kind of standard here? And he was the author of ERC20, or he originally proposed it. He didn't work for the Ethereum Foundation or anything. He was just like a pure community member. And that was it. It was just like 6 functions that make up ERC20. And that to me was a seminal moment in the Ethereum story, because if you look at the chart of like adoption and all these tokens that were created, it wasn't the launch of Ethereum that spearheaded this. It was the agreement of ERC20 and the adoption of it between exchanges and wallets, so everything could be interoperable. And to me, that's kind of the quiet story of how Ethereum like took over the world so quickly. And so we wanted to kind of get inspired by that a little bit, and try to propose it for our industry, security tokens, and that's where ERC 1400 came from.
But now it appears, well, you guys are doing this. You guys are building your own blockchain, and so I'm curious as to why you decided to go down that route.
Yeah, we are big fans of Ethereum, and our Ethereum product will live on. It's decentralized, and I think Ethereum is actually, layer 2s on Ethereum are really proving to be a viable strategy right now, and that wasn't so clear even a year ago. So that's been a really interesting development. But with that said, it wasn't like we woke up one morning and said, hey, let's just build our own blockchain for no reason. We were actually getting a lot of good feedback from our community, from users, from potential stakeholder groups in our ecosystem, like banks and regulated financial institutions. And they actually told us point blank, they said, as we were trying to work with them and partner with them and talk about what issuances would look like on the platform, we actually hit a wall, because they would say, hey, we love you guys, but unfortunately we just can't get your foundation over the compliance department. And in this case it was Ethereum, because we were on top of Ethereum. There were some components of Ethereum around governance, around compliance, around by governance I mean, like, if there's a fork in the network, what happens? Like, where does the asset go? There's a lot of question marks that they weren't comfortable with. Identity is a major thing. How do you think about identity in a world that demands KYC? What do you do if that doesn't kind of happen, and what are the implications of that? So then we kind of said, listen, what do you guys think? Like, what if you could build a layer 1 blockchain from scratch? A, would that be interesting? And B, what would that look like? What kind of characteristics would you want it to have? And that's where we've kind of settled in on the pillars of what make up our new purpose-built blockchain, and we're super excited about it. We've really invested a lot of time and resources into it, and the whole community has as well. And basically, we want to be the default layer 1 blockchain for security tokens. Right now, most of them live on Ethereum, and we have some inside knowledge that may not scale as well and be as viable as some may think. So we, and this is from real world, talking to users, talking to community members, and now we're saying, okay, we want to throw our hat in the ring and say this is how we think as a community driven project. This is how we think security token settlement and consensus should look, and we're really excited about kind of unveiling it to the world over the coming months.
So sorry, like by building your own blockchain, are you saying that the Ethereum, how it's built today and how it works, is not really suitable for security token issuance, or are there some niche use cases where it might be suitable?
Yeah, exactly what you just said. That's exactly what we came up with. Not to mince words, I could list off a lot of little things and a few big things. Little things like kind of gas, and that this is kind of a problem, and how banks kind of hold gas and pay gas and things like this, and just the cost of gas and how it's kind of prohibitive and things like this, and
Yep.
even
It's prohibitive to everybody right now. So
exactly, yeah, even just like signing a multi-sig transaction costs like $50. It's crazy, and then so those kind of reasons, coupled with kind of our big pillar reasons around compliance and governance and identity and confidentiality. This is a huge challenge with Ethereum. Is what happens if your IP is your trading, and everything is completely transparent, which is fantastic unless you are protecting your IP, and it's really hard to shield that. Confidentiality is a huge opportunity if projects can solve it. So that's something we've been really digging deep on, writing papers around, and it's one of the four pillars for why we think Polymesh needs to exist.
And so I was doing some reading on the white paper. Is this a hybrid of a private and public chain? Because there's some permissioned aspects to it, and then of course there's some permissionless. But
yeah, no, good question. We kind of split out two kind of components there. There's public versus private, and then permission versus permissionless. And we fit in the matrix or whatever on the box on the matrix. We're a full public permissioned chain. And the reason it's permission is because we actually need our governance demands that we have validators. We call them node operators in our ecosystem to oversee the network. And in our case, this is the big, hairy differentiator between us and a lot of other public chains, is you need to KYC to use our network. And this is the big kind of insight that we had, that security tokens haven't exploded as quickly as we thought. And one of the reasons, I think, is because the foundation that they're built on, Ethereum, which is where 95% of them exist today, is not suitable for them. And that's, to your point, why we've settled in on this kind of strategy is going after, it's still decentralized. So I want to be very clear on that. And it's still, abstracted away from us making all the decisions, because our set of node operators are the ones that kind of oversee the network in conjunction with our governance model, which is all tokenized and on-chain as well.
And so when you say everyone needs to be KYC'd, what does that mean exactly?
So to use the network, you're facing with our network of KYC providers that have integrated with our technology. That is a requirement to use the network. The network needs to know yours. So every time there's something happening on Polymesh, you can always trace it back to an ID. And that, to us, that is a critical reality of the world we live in. And we could, put our head in the sand and try to avoid it, but we try to embrace it and say, hey, we want to play by the rules, and we want to do it the right way, instead of kind of being in the gray zone too much.
And so are these KYC, like, I guess, I'm going in more in the direction here of like making it universally acceptable, accessible, sorry. People who have KYC typically, these are people in developed nations, or if they're in developing nations, typically, they're people who are quite wealthy because they have documentation and things like that. Is that where most of your users are going to be coming from? And, to start, developed countries, US, Europe, Japan, countries where documentation can be trusted and things like that, or people have documentation?
Yeah, it's a decision that we didn't take lightly, actually, strategically, around who's our first kind of use case. And early days, we were kind of debating about whether we want this to be kind of a global, developing country initiative and really help, farmers in Kenya tokenize their goats. Like literally,
Yeah.
that's one angle we took, and we still totally believe that's still possible. But we decided to kind of do it the hard way, and we want to be institutional grade, and we want to be America grade, and the U.S. is the hardest jurisdiction by far. And then that's not to say that we're like a U.S. project by any means, but we wanted to be up to that level of rigor and standards that U.S. Projects need to deal with. So that was kind of our first jurisdiction. We said let's build it for the hardest jurisdiction to be suitable for that, and then go to market with that strategy, and then kind of work our way globally from there. I will point out though that Europe actually has emerged as one of the best jurisdictions in terms of the regulatory regime and the way the regulators have kind of forward thinking of these issues. So we're very bullish on Europe. We spent a lot of time there. That's where a lot of our early conversations with our network stakeholders are based out of, and something I wouldn't have expected. I didn't think Europe was so forward thinking, but that's a jurisdiction that we're really bullish on. But again, it's kind of the top tier of the European financial system.
And so I guess people are creating sort of these digital identities for themselves by going through KYC. Is your hope that these digital identities, because I think it's a super fascinating space, will be used for other things other than Polymath and security tokens?
Yeah, identity is a massive blue ocean of opportunity. And I will say we're kind of more laser focused in on this one vertical we have, because our vertical is
Yep.
so huge. But of course, there's going to be other applications, and that's the beauty, I think, of crypto and tech in general, is like sometimes when you release something, it gets used in new and interesting ways that you didn't even plan for. So we totally expect that as well.
And in the white paper, you talk about, you hope that an ecosystem will be built on top of Polymesh. What kind of an what kind of services, products do you anticipate or expect or envision, I should say, being built on top of Polymesh?
Yeah, no, we already have a lot of these ecosystem partners that have kind of seen what we're doing and said, hey, we want to integrate with that. So these are groups like law firms. These are groups like KYC providers. These are groups like custody providers. These are people like transfer agents. So that's kind of been our strategy all along, is to say, let's not try to do everything. It's such a huge thing to bite off. Like we need to kind of do it strategically. Let's just be the technology layer, the connective tissue, so to speak, between all of these other services, because we've never really saw ourselves as a service provider. That's kind of what we abstract away to other folks, and that's kind of what we've been releasing to the world. Like our white labeling program is to say, hey, you guys are the experts in being a broker dealer and fundraising and things like this. We're just going to like really be laser focused on the base layer protocol and the base layer smart contracts layer 2. On top of that is our kind of core competency, and then everything else on top of that, the layer 3, so to speak, are all these other businesses, and they're all kind of selfishly looking to make a sustainable business, and that's what we want to see a lot of. Just like in Ethereum, there's all kinds of unicorns that have launched on top of Ethereum. That's the same kind of dynamic we want in our protocol as well.
And so I guess one of the biggest problems I think generally in crypto and blockchain today is that the UI, the UX is terrible. Like you alluded to earlier, what if grandma loses her private keys?
Yeah.
How are you guys dealing with that?
Yeah, we take the UX very seriously, and sometimes we want to be the ones proposing a clean UX, and sometimes we want other folks to do it, depending on what product it is. But for us, we have a product called Token Studio, which we take a lot of pride in, which is a completely decentralized way for a business to tokenize an asset, and then and we've made it really easy. Everything is in their core. The onus of complying with their local regulatory regime is kind of in their court, but we provide the tools to enable that. And that's one thing that we've really tried to focus on, making UX really good. With that said, though, a lot of and any protocol that launches needs some kind of front end. Sometimes it's centralized on AWS, sometimes it's on a smart contract. But you know, with our design, it's a lot of what we're doing now is really base layer, highly technical things. We're working with a framework called Substrate, released by Parity, and it's been fantastic. But that's kind of the puzzle pieces that we're working with, is the modularity of Substrate. That was one of the main reasons we decided to work with them, and their tools. But to answer your question, yeah, it's a super huge challenge to this day. It's still way too hard to use, and we're really hoping to inspire a new group of, we might release the first wallet, for example, just like Ethereum released the Mist wallet, but after that, it's in the community's hands from then on in. And like a block explorer and things like this, like those are all separate. That's not an Ethereum Foundation project. EtherScan it's its own private business. That's the exact kind of thing that we're trying to emulate.
Just as a question, are you guys going to be giving like a grant program to startups like build these types of tools, like developer tools and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we're working on as we speak. We think it's super important to incentivize the right actions on the network, and also, we want to even abstract further away from that eventually, and just have folks do it on their own. But to spearhead that, yeah, we absolutely intend to formulate this grant program and give a lot of money away to people who can build on it.
No, that's great to see you seeing a lot of people do that, and I think at least in the early stages, I think it makes a lot of sense, because developer tools are super necessary. So where does this leave Polymath? So like, is Polymath become in the future sort of the maintainer of the blockchain, or are they providing one of these services that live on top of Polymesh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to look at Polymath literally means you're really good at a lot of things. And for us, as much as I'd like to stay laser focused, I still want us to also expose, our stakeholders to the entire space. So for us, I look at it like a stack. We want to play at the layer one, like the blockchain that we're building. That's a super core thing to what we're doing, and also the layer two. So that's kind of the smart contract powered interfacing we do with the end user, or through an intermediary like a white labeler. And then on top of that, we have some other assets as well. We own tokens.com and a few other things that we were trying to make it all kind of synergistic together. So Polymath really, in terms of the blockchain, which is our core product that we're super excited about, that will be decentralized from day one, and although it will progressively decentralize even more as time goes on. And yeah, that's exactly what we'll be. We'll be a small early maintainer of the protocol, and then over time we want to kind of hand off the admin keys and a lot of the upgrade decisions over to the community, and we think that's super imperative for all the blockchains.
That's cool. So, I mean, building a marketplace, you have an experience that a lot of early stage startup founders face, and it's a dilemma that you need to build both sides of the marketplace, right? You need to build, in your case, people who want to issue security tokens, but people also who want to buy those security tokens. So, what advice or what lessons have you learned in terms of building a two-sided marketplace, particularly in the beginning?
Yeah, good. Yeah, fantastic question. So, I love this topic, and in my experience, the best way, you got the chicken and egg, and that's not an easy thing to get out of. Marketplaces are very hard to seed. So I'll give you two answers. There's the crypto native marketplace, and then there's the non-crypto native. So for non-crypto native, these are things like eBay, and everything else. I'm not even going to list. It's obvious on what a marketplace is. And typically what you have to do, everyone knows you got to get the wheel spinning, because there's network effects, and it's hard to give people any benefit at the beginning, because look at Airbnb. If there's no renters, then why would a listing house go on it? Like there's no point. And if you're a buyer and there's no good listings, why would you even go to the site? So you have to like spearhead initial demand. What's the verb I'm looking for? But anyways, the best way to do that, in my experience, is to subsidize one side of the market, and you can subsidize both. You'll have to do both, but I think it's important to not juggle too many things. So in my experience, it's really important to follow the demand side. If you have the demand, the supply kind of tends to magically appear. And I'll give an example: 99 Designs, which I've used. I think that's where the famous Polymath logo came from, actually. And I remember they launched, and I was like, this makes no sense. Like, how would I love it as a buyer? Like, for $99, you get a logo and you get 100 people submitting, but why would sellers do that? But I missed, these guys were smart, and they said, hey, we have to subsidize one side, and they picked the demand side. They subsidized the crap out of making it such a no-brainer for demand that a lot of designers from around the world who had some spare capacity, magically appeared once all the buyers like me came in. So that's one way to do it. I would always try to start with the buy side. Not every time. Sometimes you subsidize the sell side, but the money is the tail that wags the dog, or whatever metaphor you want to use. So that's non-crypto native. For crypto native, you have a secret weapon called a token. And if you design a good token economic model, that's kind of the promise that a lot of the smartest people in the space I talk to, the smartest VCs, it's kind of like you can use the token as an incentive model to spearhead network effects and to build marketplaces. And, you look at what's happening now with yield farming and all these lending protocols, is they're using game theory, I think more specifically mechanism design, which is like reverse game theory, to design a system that incentivizes use. And in its crudest form, it's just like, hey, here's a new token, a governance token, and the more you use our network, the more governance tokens you get. so there's a lot more kind of nuanced and interesting things you can do to incentivize behavior on the network, which is typically usage to get users and utility and network effects. And in lending protocols, it's liquidity pools. That's like the network effect is more like a deeper liquidity pools get more usage, and everybody's happy. So everybody's fighting to get deeper liquidity pools and more integrations and so on. But it's kind of a beautiful thing, because it kind of like liquidity begets liquidity, and everybody's incentivized to help each other and hook into each other. So it's not as zero sum as some other Uber versus Lyft. It's a little more collaborative in that sense. So that's kind of my long answer on.
No, it's a great answer, because it's a challenge, particularly in startups that we sometimes invest in some platform companies that need to build both sides of the market, and it's the age old question, and it's a challenge not just blockchain founders face, but founders across the globe and almost any industry face.
What are some? You want to focus on the community as its own side of the marketplace, or something like the developer community is extremely important, and you need, especially if you're a layer one blockchain, like you need a robust network of open source developers that are volunteering their very precious time on your product, and you have to delight them, and you have to make it easy for them, and you have to provide amazing documentation, and you have to you have to really do a great job at that. It's something that I think we're really focusing on, and I think we can do a better job is interfacing with the developer community. For us, it's a little different than the typical crypto developer. We're going after like guys and girls who work at JP Morgan, and they want to create kind of new developers, of course, but they want to create kind of new interesting products through their job or on the evenings and weekends. So I would also echo that's a really important part of running a crypto network is how the heck are you going to convince?
No, it's community and marketing. I think is a very massive point.
You can't. Sorry, just a thought here. You can't you have to remove barriers, and guess what? If all these developers are using Solidity, which I think is well known as a great early language, but it leaves something to be desired. But guess what? They've already learned it, and the switching costs of like unlearning that and learning a new a DSL is not trivial. And what we're seeing with the industry right now is everyone's kind of coalescing around WebAssembly, which is something developers already know, like eWasm, and it's kind of like a way to think about if you're launching a new project. Maybe you want to hook into a DSL that people kind of know already, and if you're trying to create something new, I know some projects like there's Rust involved. Like we use Rust a lot, and there's some that use what's the one Cardano and those guys use?
Haskell.
Yeah, Haskell. And it's like, so yeah. And if you're Charles Hoskinson, you can do whatever the heck you want because you're Charles Hoskinson. People will follow you. But if you're not Charles Hoskinson, you gotta be really strategic about, it's about the product and the technology, and you work backwards from there, and distribution. But that's something to think about as well.
Yeah. What like I guess we come across technical founders all the time, and they underestimate. They don't really like talking to the community or doing that marketing aspect. But for you as a founder, and maybe this still might be the case today, but what are some of the things that you really hated doing, but you came to realize that you needed to do?
Yeah, gosh, good question. Everything. Starting out, and then there's regular startups, and then there's crypto startups. So maybe for the brevity's sake, I'll just focus on the crypto side. But getting the community is a big one, and developer communities like other developers leading it, and they there's a really good podcast A16Z just came out with on this topic that I would recommend people check out. But community's one. I think getting your early product market fit and MVP, that stuff still applies to crypto. And the roadmap these days that the cool kids are using is you start out, you raise some initial capital, usually in equity form, and usually you're going to give up some future rights to token issuances to a VC, and that's really healthy. And then you take that, and then you get product market fit, and whatever that means to you is different than what it meant for us. But it's like getting usage, like getting, there's all kinds of content you can read on product market fit that applies to crypto. And then the next step is you build a community, and typically you want to get PMF before you build a community. And then the community is extremely important because once you have a community, you can decentralize. Before, you can't. Like if people try to decentralize too early, it's not a good idea. And that's kind of the conventional wisdom right now.
Yeah.
Jesse Walden, also at Andreessen, has put out a lot of good content on this, and I fully subscribe to it. And it basically states, get product market fit, build a community, and then hand the keys over to the community. The best example I can think of is Compound. They're kind of the first like really polished example. I'm sure Robert Leshner would have some other internal stories of not being so easy, maybe, but they did a great job of doing it the right way, bringing in the right partners, and you can see the way it's paid off. And even like I had no idea that a governance token would be as popular as it has been. But I think it goes to show you there's a lot underneath the water of that iceberg, a lot of work and planning and thinking and focus as well. Like they just were absolutely laser focused on just working on the protocol and how lenders and borrowers and market makers interact. So it's a great example to follow. There's a lot of good content of Robert and the lead investor talking about this.
So last question, and then I saw one person dumped a question in the chat, but if anyone else has one, please put it in there. But what are some of your favorite projects that are not DeFi related or security token related?
Let's see. I like, Polkadot is, I guess, kind of DeFi, but very, very impressed by their community. And competing with Ethereum is extremely impossible, but because of the network effect they have and the developer buy-in. But if anyone has shown signs of being able to, Polkadot's been fantastic. I'll say something about Tron because they get a lot of hate, but I gotta say, like, I respect Justin a lot because he he thinks about distribution first, and he works backwards towards the tech. And I actually think that's a good strategy in general in startup parlance. Is like, think about your users, think about how you're going to get them, and then talk to them, and then figure out what they want, and then kind of build what they want. And in crypto, it's even more powerful because everything's open source. And if you own the distribution, which Justin does, he made a really ballsy acquisition of BitTorrent. And if you control the distribution, your tech is against Justin is not going to be a competitive advantage because he's just going to intelligently leverage it and then get distribution faster than you can. So I did a little tactical thing of what I like about them. We know it's super not cool to like Justin's son or stuff, but as a businessman, I think he's done a good job in that sense. So it might be a bit controversial. Cardano, yeah, big fan of Charles. Like the Charles Hoskinson, I'll support anything he does. Huge fan of his. I could go on, but
yeah, no, of course. The only question that's in here, I think you talked about it earlier, but it's about trading STOs. Is that becoming more liquid than in the past? I think you mentioned it's doubled in the past year or something like that.
Oh, dude, it's been crazy growth in volume. It's been tripling every month this year, roughly. And so it's still small because it started out at 0 and then went to $10 and then 20 and then 40 and now I forget the stats. It's like $1 million of volume over a period of time. So it's still really small in the grand scheme of things, but it's growing and everything started out small. Crypto trading started out small, and now there's DeFi, decentralized exchanges trading more than Binance, I think I read. So there's a lot of really cool stuff happening there.
Yep. Another question that popped in was, I know the Polymath token will be used in Polymesh, but will it be a stable price or will it be volatile like the T0 token and other security tokens?
It will not be stable. It's a utility token, and we don't really think about whether it's going to trade and where it's going to trade and things like that. But it's important for us. It's like a staking token. So you to use the network, you need Poly, and everything we do, there's a Poly component to it. It's kind of the fuel of the network. And we're actually thinking of ways to get it in the hands of users as efficiently as possible, because that's kind of what we're obsessed with.
And just question on, has the token been issued yet? And if it hasn't, how are you going to issue it? I know initial DEX offerings are the rage now.
We have some content on this, and just at a high level, the way we've thought about this is, we already have a token, and we want to kind of migrate that over to that exact same token with the similar terms, like as close as possible. We want to stay very, very true to our original mission. That's extremely important. And everything we do, we kind of consult with our community and our stakeholders. Everyone is super excited about this blockchain project, and holy crap, it's a lot of work. Yeah. I could see why, out of the top 100 tokens in terms of usage, most of them are layer 1 blockchains, and I think that's because people realize, once you have it, it's a really strong kind of potential mode and competitive advantage. And when I say you have it, I mean once the community has it and it's truly decentralized. So that's kind of how we think about it, and there's going to be a lot more specific details coming out closer to launch.
Great. Well, I guess the last question that I have is, how can we be helpful to you or to Polymath?
Right now, it's all about adoption. So that's what we're obsessed with, and we're really picky about our validators. Well, again, we call them node operators in our project. So we're always looking for that. So that's regulated financial institutions from all around the world. That's the difference between our validators and just regular validators. Is our node operators need to be regulated financial institutions, and we're not making concessions there right now. So it's a longer sales cycle. It's not really a sale, but it's a longer education cycle. And we're always, interested in talking to more financial institutions. We're already talking to kind of tier ones around the world. So we're always looking for that, and just people to be educated about not just what we're doing, but the security token asset class. And part of our key metrics is not just growing our stuff, but growing the TAM, the addressable market, and and we're always looking, for people to get involved, to learn about it, to get educated, to make proposals, to make critiques. That's what we believe in.
Great. Well, if anyone would like to learn more about Polymath, they can go to the website polymath.network. Trevor, thank you very much for your time today. It was a great chat.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.